The food tray crashed to the floor, and 11-year-old Tyler sat frozen in his wheelchair while the entire cafeteria laughed at him. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Mashed potatoes splattered across his useless legs. A mother yanked her daughter away like his disability was contagious. Then a 9-year-old girl in worn-out shoes walked straight toward him, past the laughing teenagers, past the disgusted adults, past everyone who looked away. She sat down across from him and pushed half her only sandwich into his trembling hands. "You looked hungry." She had no idea her father's motorcycle club brother was watching from the doorway. She had no idea that in 24 hours, 600 bikers would thunder into her town to find her. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment below telling us what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's begin. The cafeteria food tray hit the floor with a crash that silenced every conversation in the room. Mashed potatoes splattered across the linoleum. A carton of milk exploded on impact, sending white liquid spreading in all directions. A small plastic cup of applesauce rolled under the nearest table, and in the center of it all sat an 11-year-old boy in a wheelchair, his hands still trembling from the spasm that had betrayed him. Tyler Reeves stared at the mess. His cheeks burned red, his eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. "Oh my God," a woman at the nearest table said, pulling her daughter closer. "Don't stare, honey." But her daughter was already staring. So was everyone else. A group of teenage boys in the corner started laughing, not loud enough to get in trouble, just loud enough for Tyler to hear. "Dude, did you see that? He just..." One of them mimicked shaking hands and his friends doubled over. Tyler's jaw tightened. He'd heard worse. He'd heard so much worse. But it never got easier. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, and now everyone in this cafeteria knew something was wrong with him. Something broken. Something that made mothers pull their children away like he was contagious. "I'm sorry," Tyler whispered to no one. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He tried to wheel himself away from the mess, but his chair rolled through the spilled milk and the wheels left white tracks on the floor like evidence of his failure. A cafeteria worker approached with a mop, sighing heavily. "Just stay there, kid. I'll clean it up." She didn't say it kindly. She said it like Tyler was an inconvenience, like his existence was just another problem in her already long day. Tyler stopped moving. He sat perfectly still in his wheelchair, hands folded in his lap to hide the tremors, eyes fixed on the floor. If he didn't move, maybe everyone would forget he was there. Maybe they'd go back to their conversations and their meals and their normal lives, and he could disappear. He was very good at disappearing. Across the cafeteria, sitting alone at a corner table with a worn paperback book and half a peanut butter sandwich, 9-year-old Emma Brooks watched everything. She'd seen the boy wheel himself through the food line. She'd noticed how carefully he'd balanced his tray on his lap, how his hands had shaken as he tried to navigate between tables. She'd watched people look away from him, pretending they didn't see, pretending he didn't exist. And she'd seen the moment the tray fell. Now she watched the other kids laugh, watched the mother pull her daughter away, watched the cafeteria worker sigh like this boy's accident was the worst thing that had happened to her all week. Emma's fingers went to the dog tags hanging around her neck, her father's dog tags. She rubbed them the way she always did when she was thinking hard about something. "What would you do, Daddy?" she whispered. She already knew the answer. Emma closed her book. She picked up her half sandwich, the only lunch she had, the only food she'd eat until dinner, and she stood up. Her sneakers were too small. The left one had a hole near the toe that she'd covered with a marker so no one would notice. Her jeans were second-hand, and her t-shirt had been washed so many times the color had faded from blue to something closer to gray. But Emma Brooks walked across that cafeteria like she owned it. She walked past the laughing teenagers, past the mother still shielding her daughter, past the cafeteria worker with her mop, past every single person who had looked away from this boy in the wheelchair. She stopped right in front of him. "Hi," she said. Tyler looked up, startled. His eyes were red-rimmed. His cheeks were still flushed with humiliation. "Hi," he managed. "I'm Emma. I'm Tyler." Emma sat down in the chair across from him as naturally as if they'd known each other for years. She placed her half sandwich on the table between them. "You want some? It's peanut butter. My mom makes it with extra, so it's really good." Tyler stared at the sandwich, then at Emma, then back at the sandwich. I can't. Can't what? I can't. He held up his hands, showed her how they trembled. I drop things. I'll make a mess. Emma shrugged. So I make messes all the time. Last week I spilled a whole glass of juice on my homework. My teacher didn't believe me when I said the dog ate it because we don't have a dog. A small smile tugged at Tyler's lips, just a small one. But it was there. Really. Mrs. Patterson gave me a 0, but then she let me redo it because she said my essay about my dad was really good. Emma pushed the sandwich closer to him. Here. I already ate half. My daddy always said sharing makes food taste better. Tyler's hand reached out slowly. It shook. The sandwich wobbled in his grip, but he held on. Your daddy sounds smart, he said. Emma's smile flickered just for a moment. He was. He's in heaven now. Oh. Tyler lowered the sandwich. I'm sorry. It's okay. He was a soldier. He died being brave. Emma touched her dog tags again. These were his. I wear them so I remember to be brave too. Tyler took a bite of the sandwich. Peanut butter stuck to the roof of his mouth, and for a moment he couldn't speak. But it didn't matter because Emma was already talking again. What happened to your legs? Were you born like that or did something happen? Any other kid would have been horrified by the question. Any adult would have shushed her, told her it was rude, pulled her away with apologies. But Tyler had spent 2 years watching people pretend they didn't notice his wheelchair. 2 years of adults talking over his head like he wasn't there. 2 years of kids avoiding him because they didn't know what to say. This girl just asked. Car accident, Tyler said, 2 years ago. A drunk driver hit us. My mom... He stopped, swallowed hard. Your mom what? She didn't make it. Now it was Emma's turn to be quiet. She looked at Tyler with those old, observant eyes that had seen her own father's flag-draped coffin, that had watched her mother cry herself to sleep for months afterward, that understood loss in a way no 9-year-old should understand it. So we both lost somebody, she said softly. Yeah. That's really sad. Yeah. Emma reached across the table and put her hand on his trembling one. But we're still here. That's what my mom says. The people we love are gone, but we're still here, so we have to keep going. For them. Tyler's eyes welled up again. But this time when the tears came, he didn't try to hide them. No one ever... He had to stop, had to breathe. No one ever just talks to me. They look at my chair and they don't see me. They see something broken. You're not broken, Emma said firmly. You just sit different. A laugh burst out of Tyler, unexpected, genuine, the first real laugh in longer than he could remember. I just sit different. Yeah. Some people sit in regular chairs. You sit in a chair with wheels. It's just different, not broken. Tyler looked at this girl, this tiny girl with her faded clothes and her dead father's dog tags and her half-eaten sandwich that she'd shared without hesitation, and something cracked open inside him. You're weird, he said. I know. Emma grinned. Want to see a card trick? I'm not very good at it, but my dad taught me before he left, and I've been practicing. Sure. Emma pulled a worn deck of cards from her pocket. Okay, so you pick a card, any card, but don't show me. Marcus Reeves stood frozen in the doorway of the hospital cafeteria. He'd only been gone for 5 minutes. 5 minutes to use the restroom while Tyler got his lunch. 5 minutes to give his son some independence, some normalcy, some space to navigate the world without his father hovering over him. He'd come back to find his son's food splattered across the floor and his son sitting alone in his wheelchair. And for one terrible moment, Marcus had felt his blood pressure spike with protective rage. He'd scanned the room looking for whoever had hurt his boy, whoever had made him drop that tray, whoever needed to answer for making Tyler look so small and ashamed. But then he'd seen her. The little girl with the worn clothes and the dog tags around her neck. The little girl who sat across from his son like she belonged there, sharing her sandwich, holding his shaking hand, making him laugh. Marcus hadn't heard Tyler laugh in months. He watched them now from the doorway, unable to move. The girl was showing Tyler some kind of card trick, and she was terrible at it. The cards kept slipping and she had to restart twice, but Tyler was patient, waiting, not helping unless she asked. And when she finally got it right, when she triumphantly revealed Tyler's card with a dramatic flourish, Tyler clapped his trembling hands together and said, "That was amazing." The girl beamed like she'd won the lottery. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, something old and heavy that had been sitting there since Maria died, since the accident that took his wife and broke his son's body and shattered everything he thought he knew about the world. This girl, this tiny, generous, kind-hearted girl, had done more for Tyler in 10 minutes than 2 years of therapy and support groups and Marcus's desperate attempts to make things better. She'd seen a boy who needed a friend, and she'd become one. Simple as that. Marcus walked toward them slowly, not wanting to interrupt, not wanting to break whatever magic was happening at that table. But Tyler spotted him and waved. "Dad! Dad, this is Emma. She shared her sandwich with me, and she showed me a card trick, and her dad was a soldier like you." Marcus reached the table. Up close, he could see the details he'd missed from the doorway. The girl's sneakers were falling apart. Her clothes were clean, but worn thin. The dog tags around her neck were genuine military issue. He'd worn the same kind for 15 years. "Hi," Emma said, looking up at him. "You're Tyler's dad." "That's right." Marcus's voice came out rougher than he intended. He cleared his throat. "I'm Marcus." "I'm Emma. Tyler's really nice. He didn't laugh at me when I messed up the card trick 3 times. 4 times, Tyler corrected, grinning. 4 times, Emma admitted. But I got it, eventually. Marcus pulled up a chair carefully, slowly, very aware that his size and his appearance often frightened people. He was 6'2", covered in tattoos, wearing his leather vest with the Iron Brotherhood patches that marked him as vice president of one of the most notorious motorcycle clubs in the Midwest. People crossed the street when they saw him coming. Mothers pulled their children close. Store clerks watched him like he was about to rob the place. But this little girl looked at him with nothing but curiosity. "Your vest has a lot of patches," she observed. "What do they mean?" "They mean I'm part of a club, a family of men who ride motorcycles together. Like a team, like a brotherhood." Marcus watched Emma's face carefully. No fear, no judgment, just interest. "We look out for each other." "That's nice." Emma's hand went to her dog tags. "My dad had a team too. He called them his brothers. He said they'd do anything for each other." "What branch was he?" "Army. He was in the infantry." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "That's a brave job." "He was the bravest person ever." Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, not boastful. "He got a medal and everything. My mom keeps it in a special box." "You must miss him. Every day." Emma's eyes met Marcus's, and he saw something there that shocked him. Understanding. This 9-year-old girl understood grief in a way that most adults never would. "But I remember what he told me before he left. He said, 'Emma, be brave, be kind, and take care of your mama.' So that's what I do." Marcus had to look away, had to blink rapidly, had to pretend he wasn't on the verge of tears in the middle of a hospital cafeteria. "Dad," Tyler's voice was concerned. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, buddy." Marcus forced the words out. "I'm good." He wasn't good. He was breaking apart inside, and he didn't know how to put himself back together. 20 minutes later, Marcus finally got the full story. Emma's mother, Sarah, worked at this hospital as a janitor, pulling double shifts to pay the bills. Emma spent her summer days in this cafeteria because there was no money for childcare and nowhere else for her to go. Sarah's husband, Emma's father, had been killed in Afghanistan 4 years ago. They'd been struggling ever since. "My mom gets really tired," Emma said, with the casual honesty of children. "Sometimes she cries at night when she thinks I'm asleep. But I hear her. I just pretend I don't because I don't want her to feel bad." "That's very thoughtful of you," Marcus managed. "She works really hard." Emma's voice held fierce loyalty. "She's the hardest worker ever. But things are just hard right now." That's what she says. Things are hard right now, baby, but we'll figure it out. She always says we'll figure it out. Marcus thought about the half sandwich Emma had shared with Tyler, her lunch, possibly her only food until dinner, and she'd given it away without a second thought. Emma, that sandwich you shared with Tyler, was that all you had to eat? Emma hesitated, just for a moment, but it was enough. It's okay, she said quickly. I wasn't that hungry anyway. She was lying. Marcus could see it in the way she glanced away and the slight rumble of her stomach that she tried to cover with a cough. This child had given away her only meal to a stranger's disabled son, and she was pretending it didn't matter. Something inside Marcus shifted from grief to resolve. Emma, can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you come over here to talk to Tyler? I mean, you didn't have to. Most kids... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Most kids don't know what to say to someone in a wheelchair. Emma looked at him like the question confused her. He was alone, she said simply. And he looked sad. And everyone was laughing at him, which is mean. She shrugged. I know what it's like to feel alone. After my dad died, kids at school didn't know what to say to me either. They'd look at me weird and whisper stuff. It made me feel like I was invisible. So, you didn't want Tyler to feel invisible? Nobody should feel invisible. Emma's voice was firm. That's what my dad always said. He said the bravest thing you can do is see someone who's hurting and choose to help, even if it's scary, even if other people don't. He said that's what soldiers do. They help people who can't help themselves. Marcus stared at this girl. He'd been in combat. He'd earned commendations for bravery. He'd faced enemies and danger and death without flinching. But this child, this small, hungry, grieving child, had just shown more courage in a hospital cafeteria than most people show in a lifetime. Your dad was right, Marcus said, his voice thick. And he'd be really proud of you, Emma. Really proud. Emma smiled, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. You think so? I know so. She blinked rapidly, then looked at Tyler. I have to go soon. My mom's break is almost over, and I told her I'd meet her in the lobby. But can I come back tomorrow, if you're here? I mean, I have physical therapy at 10, Tyler said eagerly. I'll be here. Okay, I'll bring a better card trick. One where I don't drop the cards. Emma stood up, then paused. Oh, wait. I have something. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a friendship bracelet. It was simple, just colored thread woven together, but she pressed it into Tyler's shaking hand like it was precious. I made this last week. I was going to give it to my friend Mia, but she moved away before I could. I want you to have it. Tyler looked at the bracelet, then at Emma, then back at the bracelet. Are you sure? Yeah. Emma grinned. Now we're friends. Official. She turned and walked away, weaving through the tables, that faded blue t-shirt disappearing through the cafeteria doors. Marcus and Tyler sat in silence for a long moment. Then Tyler said in a voice so quiet Marcus almost missed it, She's the first friend I've made since the accident. Marcus couldn't speak. Everyone else looks at me like I'm broken dad, like there's something wrong with me, but she didn't. She just... Tyler held up the bracelet, this simple gift from a stranger. She just saw me. Marcus stood abruptly. I'll be right back, buddy. Where are you going? I need to make a phone call. Marcus pushed through the cafeteria doors and walked until he found an empty hallway. His hands were shaking, not like Tyler's involuntary tremors, but with emotion he couldn't contain. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, found the name he was looking for. It rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. Steele. You never call during the day. What's wrong? Robert Hammer Wilson was the president of the Iron Brotherhood, the man who'd given Marcus his road name, his patch, his purpose after Maria died. Hammer had been riding for 40 years and had seen everything. Nothing surprised him anymore. I need your help, Marcus said. Not for me, for someone else. Talk to me. So Marcus talked. He told Hammer about Tyler's accident in the cafeteria, about the laughing teenagers, and the mother who'd pulled her child away, about his son sitting alone in his wheelchair covered in spilled food wanting to disappear. Then he told him about Emma, about the half sandwich, about the dog tags, about a soldier's daughter who'd walked across that room when everyone else looked away, about a 9-year-old girl who'd made his broken son laugh for the first time in months. Her mom's a janitor here, Marcus said. Works double shifts. Husband was killed in Afghanistan 4 years ago. They're struggling, Hammer. Really struggling. The kid was wearing shoes with holes in them, and she gave my boy her only lunch. She didn't hesitate. She saw someone hurting and she helped. Just like her dad taught her. Hammer was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. What do you need? Everything, Marcus said. I want to do something for this family. Something big. Something that shows this kid that what she did matters. That kindness matters. That she's not invisible either. How big are we talking? As big as we can make it. Another pause. Then, you know what you're asking. You're asking me to mobilize the Brotherhood for a little girl and her mama. I'm asking you to do what we always say we do. Protect the vulnerable. Honor the good ones. Show the world that we are more than what they think we are. Marcus could hear Hammer breathing on the other end of the line. He could picture the old man sitting in his garage surrounded by memorabilia from decades of riding, thinking it through. This kid, Hammer said finally, she really shared her only food with your boy. Without hesitation, didn't even think about it, just saw someone who needed something and gave it. And her daddy was military, infantry, killed in action. She wears his dog tags every day. Hammer let out a long breath. Tell me where and when. Cedar Falls, Kansas. The family lives on the east side of town. I'll get you the address. How many brothers you want? Marcus thought about it. Thought about that little girl in her worn shoes. Thought about her mother working double shifts to survive. Thought about a soldier who died overseas and left behind a family that was still fighting. All of them, Marcus said. I want all of them. Hammer laughed a low, surprised sound. You know that's over 600 riders. I know. From 5 different states. I know. By when? Tomorrow morning. The silence stretched. Marcus could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Then Hammer spoke, and his voice carried the weight of a man who'd led warriors for decades. Ride for Emma. I'll make the calls. The line went dead. Marcus stood in that empty hospital hallway, phone still pressed to his ear, and felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. Sarah Brooks was bone-tired. She'd been mopping the same hallway for the past 20 minutes, her mind wandering through the maze of bills and due dates and final notices that had become her constant companions. The eviction notice sat in her purse like a ticking bomb. 7 days. She had 7 days to come up with 3 months of back rent, or she and Emma would be on the street. She didn't know where they'd go. She didn't know what they'd do. She just knew she couldn't let Emma find out. Couldn't let her daughter see how scared she was. Couldn't add that burden to a child who'd already lost so much. Hey, Sarah. She looked up. One of the nurses, Denise, was waving at her from the end of the hall. Your daughter's waiting in the lobby. Said to tell you it's almost time. Sarah checked her watch. Almost time for her break, the 15 minutes she got to spend with Emma between her morning and afternoon shifts. Thanks, Denise. Sarah put away her mop and walked toward the lobby, rolling her shoulders to ease the constant ache that had settled there. She was 42 years old, but she felt 60. 4 years of grief and exhaustion and barely getting by had worn her down to something thin and fragile. But she pushed through the lobby doors with a smile on her face, because Emma was sitting on one of the plastic chairs, kicking her legs and reading her book, and seeing her daughter was the best part of every day. Hey, baby. Emma's face lit up. Mom. She ran over and wrapped her arms around Sarah's waist, squeezing tight. Sarah breathed in the smell of her daughter's shampoo, the cheap stuff from the dollar store, but it smelled like flowers and sunshine and everything good in the world. How was your morning? Sarah asked. Good, I made a friend. Yeah, tell me about it. They sat together on the plastic chairs, and Emma launched into the story of Tyler and the card trick and the friendship bracelet. Sarah listened, watching her daughter's animated face, feeling her heart swell with pride and break with grief all at once. This girl, this incredible, generous, brave girl who gave away her lunch to a stranger, who made friends with a disabled boy everyone else ignored, who carried her father's dog tags and his legacy like they weighed nothing at all. His name is Tyler, and he's in a wheelchair, and his mom died in a car accident, so we're the same kind of sad, Emma was saying. But he laughed at my card trick, even though I messed it up like 4 times, and I gave him my friendship bracelet, so now we're official friends. Emma, baby. Sarah hesitated. The sandwich I gave you for lunch, you shared it. Yeah, Tyler's food fell, and everyone was being mean, so I gave him mine. Emma shrugged like it was nothing. It's okay, I wasn't that hungry. Sarah's throat tightened. She knew Emma was hungry. She knew that half a peanut butter sandwich wasn't enough for a growing girl. She knew that Emma had just given away the only real meal she'd have until dinner. And Emma had done it anyway. I'm proud of you, Sarah managed. So proud. His dad was really nice too. His name is Marcus and he has tattoos and a leather vest with patches, but he wasn't scary. He said he was part of a brotherhood, like a team. And he said my dad would be proud of me. Sarah's hand went to her chest, to the place where her own grief lived. He said that, yeah, he said he knew so. Emma's eyes were bright. Do you think Dad would be proud, Mom, really? Sarah pulled her daughter close, held her tight, pressed her lips to the top of her head. Baby, your dad would be so proud. He's watching you from heaven right now, and he's telling all the angels about his brave, kind, wonderful daughter. Emma snuggled into her mother's embrace. I miss him. I know, I miss him too. They sat like that for a few minutes, holding each other in the hospital lobby while the world moved around them. Sarah's break was almost over. In a few minutes, she'd have to go back to mopping floors and cleaning toilets and pretending everything was fine. But for now, she held her daughter and let herself feel something other than exhaustion. Mom? Emma's voice was muffled against Sarah's shirt. Yeah, baby. Everything's going to be okay, right? Sarah closed her eyes. The eviction notice sat in her purse. The bills piled up at home. The phone calls from collectors would start again tonight. But her daughter was asking a question, and some questions deserved better answers than the truth. Everything's going to be okay, Sarah said. I promise. She didn't know she was right. She didn't know that in less than 18 hours, 600 motorcycles would converge on their small town. She didn't know that her daughter's simple act of kindness had already set something massive in motion. She didn't know that across 5 states, men were fueling up their bikes and making plans and spreading a story that would change everything. All Sarah knew was that she had to get through one more shift, one more day, one more step forward. I love you, baby. Love you too, Mom. Sarah stood up, kissed Emma's forehead, and walked back toward the hallway where her mop was waiting. She didn't look back. If she had, she might have noticed the man in the leather vest watching from across the lobby. She might have seen him wipe his eyes. She might have wondered why a stranger was looking at her daughter like she'd hung the moon. But she didn't look back. She just kept walking because that's what mothers do. They keep walking, keep fighting, keep going. Even when everything feels impossible. Even when hope feels like a luxury they can't afford. Even when they don't know that hope is already on its way. By midnight, the phone lines between Iron Brotherhood chapters were burning up. The message spread like wildfire through a network built on loyalty and honor, and the simple power of one story that mattered. Hammer had made his calls, and those calls had spawned more calls, and those calls had reached men in cities and towns across 5 states. In Kansas City, a chapter president named Ghost stood in his garage at 11 p.m. already packing his saddlebags. His wife leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You're really doing this? She asked. A soldier's daughter, Ghost said. 9 years old. Gave away her only lunch to a disabled kid. Her mom's working double shifts just to keep them off the streets. He shook his head. Yeah, I'm doing this. How many are going? Last count over 400. And they're still coming in. His wife was quiet for a moment. Then she pushed off the doorframe and walked over to him. I packed you sandwiches, she said. Extra ones, in case this little girl needs more food to share. Ghost kissed her long and hard. This is why I married you. Ride safe, and take pictures. I want to see your face when you all show up. In Wichita, a mechanic named Crow was under a bike when his phone buzzed with the message. He read it once, read it twice, then rolled out from under the machine and started texting every rider he knew. Ride for Emma. Dawn tomorrow. Cedar Falls, Kansas. Responses came flooding back within minutes. I'm in. Count me. Tell me where to be. Already packing. In Tulsa, a retired Army sergeant named Preacher got the call just as he was about to turn in for the night. When he heard the story, the soldier's daughter, the dog tags, the sacrifice, he didn't hesitate. She's one of ours, he said. Even if she doesn't know it. That girl's a soldier's child, and we don't leave our own behind. By 2 a.m., over 500 riders were confirmed. By 4 a.m., the number had climbed to 600. They came from everywhere. Mechanics and teachers, construction workers and accountants, firefighters and nurses, veterans and civilians, men who'd been riding together for 40 years and men who'd just earned their patches last month. They came because a little girl had seen a disabled boy and chosen to help. They came because her father had been one of them, a soldier, a brother, a warrior who'd given his life for something bigger than himself. They came because the world was full of people who looked away, and this girl had looked straight at someone's pain and walked toward it. They came because that kind of courage deserved to be recognized. They came because kindness mattered, and they wanted to prove it. At 5 a.m., as the first hint of dawn touched the horizon, engines began to rumble across 5 states. From Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Colorado, they came. In groups of 5, 10, 20, converging on highways and back roads, heading toward a small town most of them had never heard of. Gas stations saw the traffic increasing and didn't know what to make of it. State troopers noticed the unusual activity and called their supervisors with questions no one could answer. But the riders knew. They knew exactly where they were going and exactly why. Ride for Emma. The sun rose higher. The engines grew louder. And somewhere in Cedar Falls, Kansas, a mother and daughter slept peacefully, unaware that 600 motorcycles were coming for them. Coming to show a 9-year-old girl that her kindness had traveled across state lines. Coming to show a struggling mother that she wasn't fighting alone. Coming to prove that even in a world full of darkness, there are still men who ride toward the light. Sarah's alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m. and she slapped it silent with a hand that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. She lay there for a moment staring at the ceiling of their tiny trailer, listening to Emma's soft breathing from the other room. Another day. Another 18 hours of scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets and pretending everything was fine. 7 days until eviction. She'd counted it again last night, lying awake at 2 a.m., running the numbers over and over like somehow they'd change. 3 months of back rent, $2,400. She didn't have 200, let alone 2,000. Sarah pushed herself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed loudly, working overtime because the seal was going bad and she couldn't afford to fix it. Inside, half a gallon of milk that was 3 days past expiration but still smelled okay. A jar of peanut butter with maybe 2 servings left bread that was starting to go stale, and a single egg she'd been saving for Emma's breakfast. She cracked the egg into a pan and watched it sizzle. "Mom?" Sarah turned. Emma stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Hey, baby. You're up early." "I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Tyler." Sarah's heart squeezed. Her daughter, who had so little, spent her sleepless hours thinking about someone else's pain. "You really liked him, huh?" "He's nice." Emma padded over and climbed onto one of the kitchen stools. "And he's sad like me. But not the crying kind of sad. The kind where you feel it all the time, but you don't talk about it." Sarah stopped stirring the egg. That's a very wise thing to say, Emma. His mom died, like Dad, so he understands. Emma was quiet for a moment. "Mom, do you think I could see him again today? He said he has therapy at 10. "Baby, I have to work." "I know. I'll just stay in the cafeteria like always. But maybe I could eat lunch with him again, if he's there. Sarah looked at her daughter's hopeful face and felt something crack inside her. This girl asked for so little, never complained about the hand-me-down clothes, or the food that ran out before the end of the month, or the field trips she couldn't go on. And now she was asking for one simple thing: to see a friend. Of course you can, baby. Of course. Emma's face lit up like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Really, thanks, Mom. Sarah slid the egg onto a plate and set it in front of her daughter. Eat up. You need your strength for all those card tricks. Aren't you eating? I already ate, Sarah lied. Had some toast earlier. Emma looked at her for a long moment with those old knowing eyes. Then she cut the egg in half and pushed the plate toward her mother. We can share, she said. Like Dad always said, sharing makes food taste better. Sarah's vision blurred. She blinked rapidly, forced a smile. You're right, baby. He did say that. They ate together in silence, splitting a single egg, while outside the window the sun began to rise on a day that would change everything. 300 miles away, Marcus Reeves hadn't slept at all. He'd been on his bike since 4 a.m., riding through the darkness with Tyler secured in the sidecar beside him. The boy had fallen asleep around midnight, lulled by the rumble of the engine wrapped in blankets against the cold night air. Marcus's phone had been buzzing non-stop. Messages from brothers across 5 states, all saying the same thing. On my way. ETA 6 hours. Bringing 20 from my chapter. Wouldn't miss this for anything. The numbers kept climbing. 500, 550, 600. Men who'd never met Emma, who'd never seen her worn shoes or her father's dog tags, who knew nothing about her except the story Marcus had told Hammer. And they were coming anyway, because that's what brotherhood meant. When one of them called, they all answered. Tyler stirred beside him, lifting his head groggily. Dad, where are we? About 2 hours out, buddy. Are they really coming? All of them? Marcus looked in his rearview mirror. Behind him, stretching back along the highway as far as he could see, headlights cut through the pre-dawn darkness. Dozens of them. Scores. More joining at every exit. Yeah, son, they're really coming. Tyler was quiet for a moment. Then, for Emma. For Emma. She's going to be so surprised. Marcus smiled, the first real smile in longer than he could remember. Yeah, buddy. I think she will be. Back in Cedar Falls, Sarah dropped Emma off at the hospital at 7:30 and started her shift with the same heavy heart she'd carried for 4 years. The morning passed in a blur of mop buckets and cleaning supplies and aching muscles. Sarah worked mechanically, her body going through the motions while her mind churned through impossible math. $2,400 in 7 days. She'd already sold everything she could sell. The furniture from before when Michael was alive, and they'd had a real house. The jewelry he'd given her, except for her wedding ring. The television. The microwave. Everything that wasn't nailed down and essential for survival. There was nothing left to sell. Sarah. She looked up. Her supervisor, a heavy-set man named Carl, who'd never shown her an ounce of kindness in 3 years, was walking toward her with a piece of paper in his hand. Yeah. Someone from corporate called. They're doing a round of layoffs next month. Your name's on the list. Sarah's mop clattered to the floor. What budget cuts? Nothing personal. Carl shrugged like he was talking about the weather. You've got 4 weeks. Figured you'd want to know. He walked away, leaving Sarah standing in the middle of the hallway with her world collapsing around her. Laid off. In 4 weeks. No job, no money, no home. 7 days until eviction, and now no future beyond that either. Sarah's legs gave out. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, surrounded by cleaning supplies, and for the first time in 4 years, she let herself fall apart. She'd been so strong, so determined. Michael had made her promise before he deployed that she'd take care of Emma no matter what, that she'd be brave, that she'd keep fighting, but she couldn't fight anymore. She had nothing left. I'm sorry, she whispered to the empty hallway. Michael, I'm so sorry. I tried so hard. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. In the hospital cafeteria, Emma sat at her corner table with a book she'd read 3 times already, watching the clock and waiting for 10 o'clock. Waiting for Tyler. She'd brought her deck of cards, the one her father had taught her tricks with before he left. She'd been practicing all morning, and she was pretty sure she could do the trick without dropping the cards this time. Well, mostly sure. The cafeteria was starting to fill up with the usual morning crowd, nurses grabbing coffee between shifts, families waiting for news about loved ones, staff members taking their breaks. Emma liked watching them. She liked making up stories about their lives, imagining where they'd been and where they were going. It made her feel less alone. "Is this seat taken?" Emma looked up. A woman she didn't recognize was standing beside her table, older, maybe 50, with kind eyes and gray streaking through her dark hair. "No, ma'am. You can sit there." The woman smiled and sat down across from Emma. "Thank you. I'm Denise. I work upstairs in administration." "I'm Emma. My mom works here too. She cleans." "Sarah Brooks." Emma nodded, surprised. "You know her?" "Everyone knows your mom, honey. She's the hardest worker in this building." Denise's eyes were warm. "She talks about you all the time. Says you're the best thing that ever happened to her." Emma felt her cheeks flush. "She says that every chance she gets." Denise leaned forward slightly. "I also heard about what you did yesterday with the boy in the wheelchair." "Tyler, he's my friend." "That's what I heard. You shared your lunch with him." Emma shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "He was hungry, and his food fell. It wasn't a big deal." "Maybe not to you," Denise's voice was gentle, "but it was a big deal to him and to his father. You know Tyler's dad? I met him yesterday after you left. He came to the administration desk asking about your family, wanted to know how he could help." Emma's brow furrowed. "Help with what?" Denise opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the cafeteria doors swung open and Tyler wheeled through, his face breaking into a huge grin when he spotted Emma. "Emma, Tyler." Emma jumped up from her seat, cards scattering across the table. "You came. I told you I would." Tyler navigated between tables, his movements more confident than yesterday. "Dad dropped me off early. He had to make some calls, but he said he'd be back soon." Emma gathered her cards and hurried over to him. "I practiced the trick. I'm way better now." "Well, a little better." "Okay, maybe the same, but I'm going to try anyway." Tyler laughed, that genuine full laugh that had been missing from his life for 2 years. "I can't wait to see it." Denise watched them from the table, a soft smile on her face. These children, she thought. These beautiful, resilient, kind-hearted children. They found each other in the middle of their grief and created something good. The world needed more of that. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text to her friend in the lobby. "Tell me the second anything unusual happens outside. I have a feeling this is going to be a big day." At 9:15, the first report started coming in. State Trooper Williams was parked at his usual spot on Highway 60 when he noticed the traffic pattern changing. More motorcycles than usual, way more, and they were all heading the same direction. He radioed dispatch. "Hey, we got something weird happening out here. Seeing a lot of bike traffic heading towards Cedar Falls. Anyone know about an event or something?" "Nothing on the calendar. Want me to check with the city?" "Yeah, do that, and let me know ASAP." He watched another group of 15 riders thunder past, all wearing matching leather vests, all moving with purpose. Something was definitely happening. At 9:30, Cedar Falls Police Chief Tom Daniels got a call from the state troopers. "Chief, you've got incoming. Lots of motorcycles heading your way. We're counting at least 300 so far and more coming." Daniels nearly dropped his coffee. 300? What the hell are they doing? "No idea. They're not breaking any laws, just riding. But figured you'd want a heads up." "Yeah, thanks." Daniels hung up and immediately called his dispatcher. "Get everyone on duty, now, and I mean everyone." "What's happening, Chief?" "I don't know yet, but we're about to find out." At 9:45, Sarah Brooks was still sitting on the floor of the hallway. Tears dried on her cheeks, completely unaware of what was approaching. She should get up. She knew she should get up. There was work to do, floors to mop, a job to pretend she still cared about, even though it would be gone in 4 weeks. But she couldn't make herself move. What was the point? Sarah! She looked up. Denise from administration was standing over her, concern written all over her face. Oh God, Sarah, what happened? I'm being laid off. The words came out flat dead. Budget cuts. 4 weeks. Denise crouched down beside her. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Nobody knows. They just told me. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Perfect timing, right? I'm getting evicted in 7 days, and now I don't even have a job to lose. Evicted. 3 months behind on rent. I've been trying to catch up, but... She shook her head. It doesn't matter anymore. None of it matters. Denise grabbed Sarah's hands. Listen to me. This is not the end. You hear me? This is not over. How can you say that I have nothing, Denise? Nothing except Emma, and what kind of mother am I if I can't even keep a roof over her head? You're a great mother, the best mother, and Emma knows it. Emma doesn't know anything. She doesn't know we're about to be homeless. She doesn't know I lie to her every single day, telling her everything's going to be okay when it's not. When it's never going to be okay again. Sarah's voice broke. The tears started fresh. Denise pulled her into a hug, holding her tight while she cried. It's going to be okay, Sarah. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but I promise you. You can't promise that. Nobody can. Actually, Denise said slowly, I think I can. Sarah pulled back, confusion cutting through her grief. What? Denise's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her eyes widened. Sarah, I need you to come with me. What? Why? Just trust me, please. Sarah let Denise help her to her feet. She wiped her face with her sleeves, tried to make herself presentable, even though she felt like she was dying inside. Where are we going? The lobby. There's something you need to see. They walked through the hospital corridors, Denise moving quickly, Sarah stumbling to keep up. She didn't understand what was happening. Didn't understand why Denise looked so excited, so urgent. They pushed through the lobby doors, and Sarah stopped dead. The lobby was packed with people all crowded around the window staring outside. Phones were raised recording. Someone was crying. Someone else was praying. What is going on? Sarah breathed. Denise pulled her toward the windows. Look. Sarah looked, and her heart stopped. The parking lot was full of motorcycles. Not dozens, not even 100, more than she could count. They filled every space, spilled out onto the street, blocked traffic in both directions. Men in leather vests were climbing off their bikes, removing helmets, stretching legs stiff from hours of riding. And they were still coming. More bikes poured in from every direction, engines roaring chrome glinting in the morning sun. It looked like an invasion. It looked like an army. Oh my God, Sarah whispered. Oh my God, what is this? I don't know, Denise admitted. But they're asking for someone named Emma Brooks. They say they're here for her. Sarah's blood went cold. Emma? She didn't wait for an answer. She turned and ran. In the cafeteria, Emma and Tyler were in the middle of their 5th card trick attempt when the rumbling started. At first, Emma thought it was thunder, but the sound didn't stop. It grew louder and louder and louder. What is that? Tyler asked, his eyes going wide. Emma jumped down from her chair and ran to the window. What she saw made her gasp. Motorcycles. Everywhere. An endless river of them pouring into the hospital parking lot, filling every available space, spilling onto the sidewalks and lawns. Tyler, she breathed. Tyler, come look at this. Tyler wheeled over beside her. His mouth fell open. That's the Brotherhood, he whispered. What? My dad's club. The Iron Brotherhood. That's them. That's their patches. Tyler's voice was shaking. Emma, that's my dad's brothers. All of them. Why are they here? Tyler turned to look at her and his eyes were wet with tears. I think they're here for you. The cafeteria doors burst open. Sarah ran in, wild-eyed, terrified. Emma, are you okay? I'm fine, Mom. What's going on? Sarah grabbed her daughter and pulled her close. I don't know, baby. I don't know, but we need to… Mrs. Brooks. They turned. A man was standing in the cafeteria doorway. Tall, covered in tattoos, wearing a leather vest with patches. His eyes were red-rimmed, like he'd been crying, and his hands were trembling slightly. Please don't be afraid, he said. My name is Marcus Reeves. I'm Tyler's father. Dad? Tyler wheeled toward him. You're here. Marcus knelt to embrace his son, but his eyes stayed fixed on Sarah and Emma. Mrs. Brooks, I know this must be terrifying. I know what this looks like, but I promise you we're not here to hurt anyone. We're here because of your daughter. Sarah's grip on Emma tightened. What about my daughter? Marcus stood slowly. He reached into his vest and pulled out an envelope. Yesterday in this cafeteria, your daughter did something that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She saw my son sitting alone, covered in spilled food, being laughed at by other kids. Everyone else looked away. Everyone else pretended they didn't see. But Emma walked across this room and sat down across from him. She shared her lunch, her only lunch, with a stranger, a disabled stranger that everyone else had decided wasn't worth their time. Sarah's grip loosened slightly. She told me about that. Did she tell you what it meant to Tyler? To me? Marcus's voice cracked. My son hasn't smiled in 2 years. Not since his mother died. Not since the accident that put him in that chair. 2 years of therapy and support groups and me trying everything I could think of, and nothing worked. Nothing got through to him. He paused, steadying himself. And then your daughter sat down with a deck of cards and made him laugh. Really laugh. For the first time since we lost Maria. Emma tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mom, it wasn't that big a deal. It was everything, Marcus cut in. It was everything, Emma. You saw someone who was hurting and you helped. You didn't care about his wheelchair or his shaking hands or what anyone else thought. You just saw a kid who needed a friend. So what is all this? Sarah gestured toward the window, toward the army of motorcycles outside. Why are there hundreds of bikers at my hospital? 612, Marcus said. From 5 different states. They started riding last night as soon as they heard the story. They drove through the night to be here. But why? Marcus held out the envelope. Because kindness like your daughter's deserves to be honored. Because your husband was a soldier, and that makes Emma one of ours, even if she doesn't know it. Because we heard that you're struggling, that you're about to lose your home, that you work double shifts just to keep your family fed. His voice hardened with emotion. And because in a world full of people who look away from suffering, your daughter looked straight at it and walked toward it. That makes her a warrior. And warriors protect their own. Sarah took the envelope with trembling hands. What is this? Open it. She lifted the flap. Inside was a single piece of paper with 3 words written in bold letters. Kindness rides forever. Below the words was a check. Sarah's knees buckled. This is… She couldn't breathe. This is $47,000. Collected in 24 hours from 600 brothers who've never met your daughter but heard what she did and wanted her to know it mattered. Marcus stepped closer. Your rent is paid. Your bills are paid. Your daughter's college fund is started. And if you'll let us, we're not done yet. Sarah looked up, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand. We're nobody. We're just… You're everybody. Marcus's voice was fierce now. You're every struggling mother working herself to death. You're every kid wearing shoes with holes who still shares their lunch with strangers. You're every family that lost someone in service to this country and never got thanked for their sacrifice. He turned to look at Emma. And you, Emma Brooks, are exactly the kind of person this world needs more of. The kind who sees someone hurting and helps without being asked, without expecting anything in return, without even understanding why it matters. Emma looked at her mother, confusion all over her face. Mom, what's happening? Sarah pulled her daughter close, the check crumpled in her fist, sobbing too hard to speak. Marcus knelt down to Emma's level. Emma, do you remember what you told me yesterday about what your dad said before he left? Emma nodded slowly. Be brave, be kind, and take care of my mama. That's right. Marcus's voice was thick. And that's exactly what you've been doing, every single day. You've been brave even when things were hard. You've been kind, even when you had nothing to give. And you've been taking care of your mama, even when she didn't know you were doing it. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I try. I try really hard. I know you do. Marcus reached out and gently touched her dog tags. Your dad would be so proud of you, Emma. So proud. And my brothers out there, all 600 of them, they came here today to tell you the same thing. To tell you that what you did for my son matters. That you matter. That kindness like yours changes the world. The cafeteria doors opened again. More men in leather vests filed in, but not aggressively. Quietly. Respectfully. Like soldiers entering a memorial. They lined up behind Marcus, these hardened road warriors with their tattoos and their beards and their intimidating appearances. And one by one they nodded at Emma. A silent salute. A recognition of courage. An acknowledgement that this small girl in her worn clothes and her dead father's dog tags was exactly the kind of hero the world needed. Emma looked at them all overwhelmed, not understanding but feeling something shift in her chest. Something that felt like warmth spreading through her whole body. Tyler, she whispered. Tyler wheeled up beside her and took her hand. His grip was shaky but strong. Yeah. Did you know about this? He shook his head. Not all of it. Just that my dad was really happy after he met you. Happier than I'd seen him in a long time. Emma squeezed his hand. Then she looked up at Marcus. Thank you, she said. But I didn't do anything special. I just shared my sandwich. Marcus smiled through his tears. That's exactly what makes it special, Emma. You didn't think twice. You just did what was right. He stood and turned to Sarah. Mrs. Brooks, there are 600 men outside who want to thank your daughter personally. They've been riding all night for this moment. Will you let them... Sarah looked at Emma. Emma looked back at her mother. Can we, Mom? Sarah thought about the eviction notice in her purse. The layoff announcement still ringing in her ears. The impossible mountain of debt that had seemed so insurmountable just an hour ago. And now this. 600 strangers who'd ridden through the night because her daughter shared a sandwich. Yeah, baby, Sarah whispered. Yeah, we can. Marcus offered his hand. Sarah took it. And together they walked toward the lobby doors, toward the army waiting outside, toward a moment that would change their lives forever. Emma held Tyler's hand the whole way. She still didn't understand what was happening, but she was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, her daddy had been right all along. Kindness mattered, even when you had nothing, especially when you had nothing. The lobby doors opened, and the roar of 600 voices rose to greet them. The sound hit Emma like a wall. 600 voices, 600 engines, 600 men who had ridden through the night, and now they were cheering. For her. Emma's grip on Tyler's hand tightened so hard her knuckles went white. Mom, she whispered. Mom, I'm scared. Sarah pulled her daughter close. It's okay, baby. I've got you. But Sarah was shaking too. Her legs felt like water. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Marcus stepped forward and raised his hand. The crowd went silent, instantly, completely, like someone had hit a mute button on the entire world. Brothers, Marcus called out, this is Emma Brooks. This is the girl I told you about. For a moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched. Emma felt every eye on her, and she wanted to disappear, wanted to shrink down to nothing, and hide behind her mother forever. Then a man in the front row removed his sunglasses. He was huge, maybe 6'5", with a gray beard that reached his chest and arms covered in tattoos. He looked like the kind of person you'd cross the street to avoid. He walked toward Emma. Sarah's arm tightened around her daughter. Her whole body tensed, ready to run, ready to fight, ready to protect her child with everything she had. The man stopped 3 feet away. He looked down at Emma with eyes that were surprisingly gentle. Then he dropped to one knee. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Thank you for what you did for Tyler, for showing my brother Marcus that there's still good in this world." Emma stared at him, frozen. Behind him, another man knelt. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 50. One by one, 600 bikers dropped to their knees in front of a 9-year-old girl in worn clothes and her dead father's dog tags. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. A sob escaped before she could stop it. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Oh my God." The gray-bearded man spoke again. "My name is Robert Wilson. My brothers call me Hammer. I'm the president of the Iron Brotherhood." He reached into his vest and pulled out something small, something that glinted in the morning light. "And I'd like to give you this." He held it out to Emma. A pin. Small silver shaped like a motorcycle with wings. "This is our honorary membership pin," Hammer said. "We've only given out 3 in 40 years. You're the 4th, and you're the youngest, by about 30 years. Emma looked at the pin, then at Hammer, then at her mother. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I just shared my sandwich." Hammer smiled. It transformed his whole face, made him look almost kind. "That's exactly why you deserve it, sweetheart. Because you don't understand. Because to you it wasn't a big deal. You saw someone hungry and you shared what you had. You didn't think about what you'd lose. You didn't hesitate. You just did what was right." He pressed the pin into her palm. "That's rarer than you know, and it's worth more than you can imagine." Emma's fingers closed around the pin. It was warm from Hammer's hand. "Thank you," she managed. "Thank you, Mr. Hammer." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. Hammer's smile widened. "Just Hammer, sweetheart. Nobody calls me Mister." He stood and stepped aside, and suddenly there was a line. A line of 600 men stretching across the parking lot and down the street, all waiting to meet Emma. The first man in line approached. He was younger than Hammer, maybe 30, with a shaved head and tears running openly down his cheeks. "I have a daughter your age," he said, crouching down to Emma's level. "Her name's Lily. She's got your eyes, you know, that same kindness." He pulled a small stuffed bear from inside his jacket. "I bought this at a gas station at 3 a.m. because I wanted to give you something. It's not much, but it's perfect," Emma said, taking the bear. "Thank you." The man nodded, unable to speak, and moved on. The next man stepped forward, then the next, then the next. They brought gifts, small things mostly, toys and books and candy and gift cards, things they'd grabbed at truck stops and gas stations during their all-night ride. Things that weren't expensive but were chosen with care. A coloring book from a man who said his granddaughter loved to draw. A deck of cards from a man who'd heard about Emma's tricks and wanted her to have a better set. A bracelet made of leather and silver from a man who said he'd made it himself during the ride. Each gift came with a story. Each story came with tears. "You remind me of my sister. She passed away last year. She was kind like you. My boy's in a wheelchair too. Nobody ever sat with him at lunch. Thank you for sitting with Tyler. I lost my dad when I was 12. Seeing you with those dog tags, it got me, kid. It really got me." Emma accepted each gift, thanked each person, listened to each story. She didn't understand why they were crying. She didn't understand why her small act had brought all these people here. But she understood that it mattered to them. And that was enough. Tyler stayed beside her the whole time, his wheelchair positioned so close their arms touched. He watched his father's brothers honor this girl he'd just met, and something in his chest felt lighter than it had in years. "You okay?" Emma whispered between visitors. "Yeah." Tyler's voice was thick. "I'm really okay." An hour passed. The line barely seemed shorter. Sarah stood behind Emma, watching her daughter handle this impossible moment with grace she couldn't have imagined. Pride and grief and hope all tangled together in her chest until she couldn't tell them apart. "Mrs. Brooks." She turned. A woman was standing beside her. Not a biker, someone in professional clothes with a microphone in her hand and a cameraman behind her. I'm Jennifer Hayes from Channel 7 News. Can I ask you a few questions about what's happening here? Sarah blinked. News. Ma'am, you've got 600 motorcycles blocking traffic in 3 directions. We've had calls from all over town. People want to know what's going on. Sarah looked at the camera, then at her daughter, then back at the reporter. I don't know what to say. Jennifer's expression softened. Then just tell me what happened. Start at the beginning. So Sarah did. Haltingly at first, then with more confidence. She told the story of the cafeteria, of Tyler's spilled food, of Emma walking across the room when everyone else looked away, of Marcus's phone call and the Brotherhood's response. And this, Jennifer gestured at the check Sarah still clutched in her hand. What's this $47,000? Sarah's voice broke. They collected it overnight, from 600 men who never met my daughter. Jennifer stared. I'm sorry, did you say 47,000? For our rent, our bills, Emma's college fund. Sarah wiped her eyes. We were about to be evicted. I was going to lose my job. I didn't know how we were going to survive. And then these strangers showed up and... She couldn't finish. Jennifer turned to the camera. Did you get all that? The cameraman nodded, his own eyes suspiciously bright. More news vans arrived. Local stations first, then regional. Someone said CNN had called. Someone else mentioned a viral tweet with 100,000 shares and climbing. Cedar Falls had never seen anything like it. Chief Daniels stood at the edge of the chaos, radio in hand, trying to coordinate traffic around 600 motorcycles that weren't going anywhere anytime soon. He'd been a cop for 30 years. He'd seen a lot. He'd never seen this. Chief, one of his officers approached. What do you want us to do? Daniels watched a tattooed giant hand a stuffed animal to a 9-year-old girl, while tears ran down his face. Nothing, he said finally. We do nothing. These people aren't breaking any laws. They're just being human. The officer looked confused. So we just let this happen? Yeah. Daniels felt something shift in his chest, something that had been hard and cynical for too long. Yeah, we let this happen. Hell, we protect it. Make sure nobody interferes. Make sure this little girl gets every moment she deserves. Yes, sir. As the officer walked away, Daniels pulled out his phone. His wife answered on the second ring. Tom, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. His voice was rough. I just wanted to tell you I love you, and that I'm sorry I've been so distant lately, and that I'm going to try to be better. Silence. Then, Tom, are you crying? Maybe a little. I'll explain when I get home. Just, I love you. Okay. I love you too. He hung up and went back to watching the miracle unfold. At noon, Hammer called for a break. The line was still long, but Emma was flagging her small body, tired from standing for hours, her voice hoarse from saying thank you 600 times. Let's get this girl some food, Hammer announced. She shared her lunch with Tyler yesterday. Today, we're sharing ours with her. Someone had set up tables in the parking lot. Coolers appeared from saddlebags. Sandwiches and chips and drinks materialized like magic. Emma sat between Tyler and her mother, surrounded by leather-clad men who passed her food like she was their own daughter. Eat, a man named Crow insisted, pushing a sandwich toward her. You're too skinny. Your mom needs to feed you more. Crow! His friend smacked his arm. You can't say that. What, she's skinny? It's a fact. Emma giggled. Actually giggled, the sound bright and unexpected in the middle of all this intensity. He's right, she said. Mom says I eat like a bird. See? Crow looked triumphant. Kid knows what's up. The tension broke. Laughter rippled through the group. For a moment, it wasn't 600 intimidating bikers and one small girl. It was just people sharing a meal, enjoying each other's company. Sarah watched her daughter interact with these men, and the last of her fear melted away. They weren't what she'd expected. They weren't what anyone expected. They were fathers and brothers and sons. They were veterans and workers and dreamers. They wore leather and patches that the world had taught her to fear, and they were the kindest people she'd ever met. Mrs. Brooks. She turned. Marcus stood beside her, plate in hand. Mind if I sit? Of course not. He settled into the chair next to her. For a moment, they just watched their children together. Emma was showing Tyler some card trick. Tyler was laughing at her failures. He's different around her, Marcus said quietly. I haven't seen him like this since before the accident. Emma's always been good at finding the lonely ones. Sarah's voice was soft. She says it's because she knows what lonely feels like. Marcus nodded slowly. After her father died. For a while, yeah. Kids didn't know how to talk to her. Teachers treated her different, like grief was contagious or something. Sarah shook her head. But she came out the other side, stronger, kinder. Like losing her dad taught her how important it was to hold on to the people who were still here. She's remarkable. She's her father's daughter. Sarah touched the dog tags she could see around Emma's neck. Michael would have loved this. Not the attention or the money, but seeing Emma honored for being kind. That would have meant everything to him. Tell me about him. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Nobody had asked her that in a long time. People avoided talking about Michael like mentioning his name would hurt her. They didn't understand that the silence hurt more. He was infantry, she began. 3 tours. He used to say the hardest part wasn't the fighting. It was watching people suffer and not being able to help everyone. He'd send me pictures sometimes, kids in villages, families who'd lost everything. He'd tell me their stories and I could hear it in his voice how much it broke him not to do more. Sounds like he had a good heart. The best. Sarah's eyes filled. When he came home between deployments, he'd volunteer at the VA, visit guys who didn't have family, sit with them for hours. He said they'd given everything for their country, and the least he could do was give them his time. And Emma saw all that. Emma saw everything. She was 5 the first time he deployed, old enough to understand he might not come back. She'd make him cards and care packages, draw pictures for the sad soldiers, she called them. Sarah smiled through her tears. Michael kept every single one. They found them in his belongings after. Marcus's jaw tightened. I'm sorry. Me too. Sarah wiped her eyes. But you know what, seeing all this today, these men, this kindness, I think Michael's looking down and smiling. Because his daughter turned out exactly how he hoped. Brave, kind, willing to help people even when it costs her. Even when it's her only lunch. Especially then. They sat in comfortable silence watching their children. Then Marcus spoke again, his voice different, harder. Mrs. Brooks, I need to tell you something about why we really came. Sarah tensed. What do you mean? The money, the show of support. It's all real. But it's not the whole reason. Marcus turned to face her. When I heard your story, the eviction, the job loss, I made some calls, not just to my brothers. Calls to who? People who owe me favors, people in positions to help. He paused. Your supervisor, Carl, the one who told you about the layoffs. Sarah's blood ran cold. What about him? He's been skimming from the hospital's cleaning supply budget for 3 years, pocketing the difference. One of my brothers works in accounting for the supply company. He pulled the records this morning. Sarah stared at him. Are you serious? Dead serious. Carl's been stealing, and he's been covering it up by cutting staff and blaming budget problems. Marcus's eyes were hard. You weren't laid off because of budget cuts. You were laid off because Carl needed to hide his theft. Oh my God. I've already sent the evidence to the hospital's board of directors and to the police. Marcus leaned closer. By tomorrow, Carl won't be your supervisor anymore. He'll be in jail, and you'll have your job back, with back pay for the stress he caused. Sarah couldn't breathe. How did you? I told you. We protect our own. Marcus's expression softened. And after what your daughter did for my son, you're one of ours. Whether you like it or not. Across the parking lot, Emma looked up from her card trick. She caught her mother's eye and waved. Sarah waved back, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. I don't know how to ever repay this. You don't have to. Marcus stood. Just keep raising that girl the way you've been raising her. Keep teaching her that kindness matters. Keep showing her what strength looks like. He put his hand on Sarah's shoulder. That's payment enough. He walked away, leaving Sarah alone with the biggest gift she'd ever received. Not the money, the proof that her husband's legacy lived on. At 2 p.m., the last biker in line finally reached Emma. He was old, 70 at least, maybe older. His beard was pure white and his hands shook worse than Tyler's. He walked with a cane, each step careful and deliberate. Emma was exhausted. She'd been standing, sitting, thanking, and listening for 7 hours. Her voice was nearly gone. Her feet ached. All she wanted was to curl up somewhere quiet and sleep for a week. But when she saw this old man struggling toward her, she stood up. Hi, she said. I'm Emma. The old man smiled. I know who you are, child. Everyone knows. He stopped in front of her, leaning heavily on his cane. My name's Walter. Walt. I've been riding with these boys for 52 years. That's a long time. It is. Walt reached into his pocket with trembling fingers. I've seen a lot in those years. Good times and bad. Brothers lost and battles won. But I've never seen anything like today. He pulled out something small, something that dangled on a chain. This belonged to my son. He was a Marine, died in Desert Storm. Emma's hand went to her own dog tags. These are his tags, Walt continued. I've worn them every day for 33 years. They're the most precious thing I own. He held them out to her. And I want you to have them. What? No. Emma stepped back, shaking her head. I can't take those. They're your son's. That's exactly why I want you to have them. Walt's eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. My boy was like you, Emma. He had a good heart. He saw people in trouble and he helped. That's why he became a Marine. That's why he gave his life. Because he believed that good people had to stand up for others. But you remind me of him. Walt's voice cracked. Your kindness, your bravery, the way you wear your daddy's tags like they're part of you. He pressed the chain into her hands. Take them, please. Let my boy's memory live on with someone who understands what he believed in. Emma looked at the dog tags in her hands. She looked at her mother, who was crying openly. She looked at Tyler, who nodded encouragingly. Then she looked at Walt. I'll take care of them, she promised. I'll wear them every day right next to my dad's, and I'll try to be as brave as your son was. Walt's face crumpled. A sob escaped him, the sound of 33 years of grief, finally finding release. He pulled Emma into a hug. This old man, this grieving father, this 52-year road warrior, he held onto a 9-year-old girl like she was the most precious thing in the world. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The crowd had gone silent. 600 men watched this moment, and not a single eye was dry. Emma hugged Walt back, her small arms barely reaching around him. Your son would be proud of you, she said, for giving his tags to someone else. That's really brave. Walt pulled back, laughing through his tears. You think so? I know so. Emma smiled. My dad says the bravest thing you can do is let go of something you love so it can help someone else. Walt stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Sarah. Ma'am, you raised something special here, something the world needs a whole lot more of. Sarah could barely speak. Thank you. Thank you. Walt nodded. He turned slowly, carefully, and began the long walk back to his brothers. Emma watched him go, the second set of dog tags clutched against her chest. 2 fathers' legacies, 2 soldiers' memories, 1 small girl carrying them both. She didn't understand the weight of what she'd been given. She was 9 years old, and the world was still big and confusing and full of things she couldn't explain. But she understood this kindness mattered. Small gestures mattered. Sitting with a lonely boy and sharing your lunch could change everything. Her father had taught her that. And today 600 strangers had proved him right. The afternoon sun was starting to sink when Hammer gathered everyone together for one final moment. "Brothers," he called out, "it's time." The bikers formed a circle. Emma, Sarah, and Tyler in the center, Marcus beside his son, Hammer in front. Today we witnessed something that doesn't happen often. A reminder of why we ride, why we wear these patches, why we call ourselves brothers. Hammer's voice carried across the crowd. This little girl showed us that the heart doesn't need to be big to hold a lot of love, that giving doesn't require having much to give, that kindness isn't about grand gestures, it's about seeing someone who needs something and choosing to help. He raised his fist. "For Emma." 600 fists rose in unison. "For Emma." The roar shook the ground. It echoed off buildings and rolled down streets and reached people miles away who would wonder what that sound was. Emma stood in the center of it, all overwhelmed, confused, and deeply, profoundly grateful. "Thank you," she called out, her voice small against the thunder. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you for being so nice to me and my mom." The crowd went quiet, straining to hear her. "I don't really understand why you did all this. I just shared my sandwich with Tyler because he was hungry and alone. That's what my dad taught me to do. He said being kind doesn't cost anything, but it can mean everything to someone who needs it." She reached up and touched both sets of dog tags. "I miss my dad every day, but today I feel like he's really close. Like he's watching and smiling and telling me I did good." Her voice wavered. "So thank you for making me feel like that. Thank you for making my mom cry happy tears instead of sad ones. And thank you for being Tyler's family, because he's my friend now, and his family is my family too." The silence held for one more heartbeat. Then Hammer smiled. "You heard the lady, brothers. We're family now." He turned to the crowd. "Time to ride." Engines roared to life. 600 motorcycles thundering in unison, a sound like the heartbeat of the world. Emma watched them go, one by one, each rider giving her a nod or a wave or a salute as they passed. The line seemed endless, a river of chrome and leather and humanity. And at the very end, riding beside Hammer, was Marcus, with Tyler in his sidecar. They stopped in front of Emma. "See you soon, friend," Tyler said, his smile brighter than she'd ever seen it. "See you soon," Emma promised. Marcus looked at Sarah. Something passed between them, understanding gratitude, the beginning of a friendship that would last a lifetime. Then he revved his engine and joined the river of brothers heading home. Emma stood with her mother and watched until the last bike disappeared from view. The silence that followed felt sacred somehow, heavy with meaning. "Mom," Emma said finally. "Yeah, baby. Did that really just happen?" Sarah laughed. It was a strange sound, watery and broken and beautiful. "Yeah, baby, that really just happened." Emma leaned against her mother's side. "I think Dad sent them," she said quietly. "I think he's been watching this whole time and he asked God to send us some help." Sarah's heart clenched. She wrapped her arm around her daughter. "I think you might be right." They stood there together as the sun began to set, a mother and daughter who had started this day with nothing and ended it with everything. The story went viral before Sarah and Emma even made it home. Sarah's phone started buzzing while they were still standing in the hospital parking lot watching the last traces of motorcycle exhaust fade into the evening air. She pulled it out of her pocket and stared at the screen. 47 missed calls, 200 text messages, notifications from apps she didn't even remember downloading. "Mom," Emma tugged at her sleeve. "What's wrong?" I don't know." Sarah scrolled through the messages, her eyes widening with each one. "People are calling me. People I haven't talked to in years. Your Aunt Jenny in Florida, Uncle Robert in Texas, my college roommate." Her phone buzzed again. Another call. This time she recognized the number. "Hello." "Sarah. Sarah, it's Margaret from church. I just saw you on the news. On the actual news, CNN, Sarah. You and Emma are on CNN. Sarah's legs went weak. What? The story about the bikers. It's everywhere. Everyone's sharing it on Facebook. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. People want to know if it's really you, if you're really from Cedar Falls, if... Margaret, slow down. What do you mean it's on CNN? Turn on any channel, honey, any channel. You're the top story. Sarah hung up and looked at Emma. We need to get home. They practically ran the 4 blocks to their trailer. Sarah fumbled with her keys, dropped them twice, finally got the door open. She grabbed the remote and turned on their ancient television, the one with the crack in the corner that she'd been meaning to replace for 3 years. Emma's face filled the screen. Not just Emma. The whole scene. 600 bikers kneeling. Hammer presenting the pin. Walt giving his son's dog tags. The check for $47,000. The CNN anchor's voice cut through. Remarkable scene in the small town of Cedar Falls, Kansas, where over 600 members of the Iron Brotherhood Motorcycle Club gathered to honor a 9-year-old girl who shared her lunch with a disabled boy. The story has captivated millions, with videos of the event already viewed over 20 million times on social media. Sarah sat down heavily on the couch. Emma climbed up beside her. Mom, that's us. I know, baby. Why are we on TV? Because, Sarah couldn't find the words. Because what you did mattered, Emma. It mattered so much that the whole world wants to hear about it. The news cut to an interview with Marcus. He was standing by his motorcycle, Tyler, in the sidecar beside him. She didn't see a disabled kid, Marcus was saying, his voice rough with emotion. She just saw someone who needed a friend. In a world where everyone looks away, this girl walked toward the pain. That's rare. That's worth honoring. The anchor came back on. The story has sparked a national conversation about kindness and community. A GoFundMe page set up by the Iron Brotherhood has already raised over $200,000 for the Brooks family, with donations pouring in from all 50 states and 17 countries. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. 200,000. It was 47,000 this morning, Emma said, confused. How did it get so big? I don't know, baby. I don't know. The phone rang again. Sarah answered without checking the caller ID. Mrs. Brooks, this is Amanda Chen from Good Morning America. We'd love to have you and Emma on the show tomorrow. We can fly you to New York tonight, put you up in a hotel. I need to think about it. Of course. Here's my number. Please call back within the hour if possible. We're very interested in... Sarah hung up. The phone immediately rang again. Mrs. Brooks, Mike Sullivan, Today Show. We understand you've been through quite an experience. She hung up again. Ring. Sarah Brooks, this is... Hang up. Ring. Mom, make it stop, Emma said, covering her ears. Sarah turned off her phone. The silence felt like a physical relief. What's happening? Emma whispered. Why does everyone want to talk to us? Sarah pulled her daughter close. Because the world needs good news, baby, and you gave them something to believe in. The doorbell rang. Sarah tensed. Stay here. She walked to the door and peered through the small window. A woman stood on their tiny porch, professionally dressed, holding a tablet and looking nervous. Who is it? Sarah called through the door. Mrs. Brooks, my name is Patricia Holloway. I'm on the board of directors at Memorial Hospital. May I come in? Sarah hesitated, then opened the door. What do you want? Patricia's face was tight with something that looked like shame. I want to apologize. For what? May I come in? Please, this is important. Sarah stepped aside. Patricia entered, her eyes taking in the small trailer, the worn furniture, the cracks in the walls. If she judged what she saw, she didn't show it. Mrs. Brooks, I've spent the last 3 hours going through financial records that should have been reviewed months ago, years ago. Patricia sat down on the edge of a chair. What Marcus Reeves told you this afternoon was true. Carl Henderson has been embezzling from the hospital for over 3 years. Nearly $80,000. Sarah's stomach dropped. 80,000? He covered it by cutting staff and blaming budget constraints. You weren't the only one he targeted, but you were going to be his latest victim. Patricia's jaw tightened. He's been arrested. The police came for him 2 hours ago. Good, Sarah said, surprising herself with the venom in her voice. There's more. Patricia pulled up something on her tablet. The board held an emergency meeting this evening. We've reviewed your employment record. You've never missed a shift, never had a complaint, never done anything but work hard and take care of this hospital for 3 years. I needed the job, and you deserved better than what we gave you. Patricia looked up, meeting Sarah's eyes. We're offering you a new position. Patient-family liaison. It's a desk job, regular hours, better pay. You'd be helping families navigate the hospital system, connecting them with resources, being there for people who are scared and confused. Sarah stared at her. Why would you offer me that? Because you're good with people. Because you know this hospital inside and out. And because... Patricia hesitated. Because after watching what happened today, we realized that kindness isn't just something that sounds nice. It's something that changes things. Your daughter showed us that. We'd like you to bring that same spirit to our organization in an official capacity. How much better pay? $42,000 a year, plus benefits, plus a signing bonus that should cover your back rent and then some. Sarah couldn't breathe. This morning she'd been facing eviction, job loss, and complete hopelessness. Now, can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. Patricia stood to leave, then paused. Mrs. Brooks. For what it's worth, I watched the videos today. All of them. Your daughter is extraordinary. And the apple clearly didn't fall far from the tree. She let herself out. Sarah sat frozen on the couch, her mind reeling. Mom. Emma appeared in the doorway. Who was that? That was... Sarah laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. That was our future baby. That was everything changing. Emma didn't understand, but she walked over and hugged her mother anyway. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. The night passed in a blur of phone calls Sarah ignored and news coverage she couldn't stop watching. Somewhere around midnight, Emma fell asleep on the couch with her head in her mother's lap. Sarah stroked her daughter's hair and watched the numbers on the GoFundMe page climb higher and higher. 300,000, 350, 400. By 2 a.m., it had crossed $500,000. Sarah didn't sleep. She couldn't. Her mind was racing, trying to process everything that had happened, everything that was still happening. At 6 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Brooks, this is Marcus Reeves. I know it's early, but something's happening that you need to see. Turn on Channel 4. Sarah grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news. The anchor's face was grave. Breaking news this morning. Carl Henderson, the Memorial Hospital supervisor arrested yesterday for embezzlement, has been connected to a larger fraud scheme involving several local businesses. Sources say federal investigators have been called in. Sarah sat up straighter. Henderson allegedly operated a network of shell companies that siphoned money from multiple employers over the past decade. The total amount stolen is estimated at over $500,000. 3 other individuals have been arrested in connection with the scheme, including Henderson's brother-in-law, who served on the Cedar Falls City Council. The screen cut to footage of men in handcuffs being led into police cars. The investigation began after evidence was anonymously submitted to hospital board members yesterday afternoon. That evidence has since been turned over to the FBI. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Marcus. Told you we protect our own. Carl was dirty. We made sure everyone knew. Sarah typed back with shaking fingers. How did you know about all of it? Marcus. We didn't. We just pulled the thread. It unraveled on its own. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. You don't have to say anything. Just take care of that girl. Sarah set down her phone and looked at Emma, still sleeping peacefully on the couch. This man, this stranger she'd met less than 24 hours ago, had not only given her family money and hope. He'd exposed a criminal conspiracy that had been draining their community for years. All because Emma shared a sandwich with his son. The ripples just kept spreading. Emma woke up at 7 a.m. rubbing her eyes and yawning. Mom, did you stay up all night? Couldn't sleep. Is everything okay? Sarah smiled, and for the first time in years it reached her eyes. Everything is better than okay, baby. Everything is amazing. Her phone rang. She checked the caller ID and answered. Mrs. Brooks, this is Jennifer Hayes from Channel 7. We spoke yesterday. I remember. I'm calling because something's happened that I think you should know about. Several local businesses have reached out to us this morning. They want to help your family. Help how? The owner of Cedar Falls Hardware wants to renovate your trailer for free. The grocery store is offering a year of free groceries. The dentist downtown wants to provide free dental care for Emma. And that's just the start. I have a list here of over 30 businesses. Sarah's hand trembled. Why would they do that? Because your daughter reminded them what this town used to be. Before the factory closed, before everyone got so focused on just surviving. She reminded them that we're supposed to take care of each other. Sarah couldn't speak. Mrs. Brooks, are you there? I'm here, Sarah managed. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Let them help. Let Emma's kindness ripple out even further. Okay. Yes. Tell them yes. She hung up and burst into tears. Emma was at her side instantly. Mom, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, baby. Sarah pulled her daughter into her arms. Everything's right. For the first time in 4 years, everything is finally right. They held each other in their tiny trailer while the morning sun streamed through the windows, and Sarah let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind them. At 9 a.m., a truck pulled up outside. Sarah opened the door to find Marcus standing there with Tyler in his wheelchair and a crew of men in work clothes behind them. What is this? The renovation crew. Marcus grinned. Hardware store owner called me this morning. Said he wanted to help but didn't know where to start. I told him I'd supervise. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Marcus's expression softened. I want to. Tyler wants to spend more time with Emma anyway. Figured we could make ourselves useful while they play. Tyler waved from his chair. Hi, Mrs. Brooks. Hi, Emma. Emma pushed past her mother and ran to Tyler. You came back. Dad said we could stay for a few days. Is that okay? That's amazing. Emma grabbed the handles of his wheelchair. Come on, I want to show you my room. It's really small, but I have books and my cards and... She wheeled him inside, chattering the whole way. Marcus watched them go with a look Sarah recognized. The look of a parent seeing their child happy. She's good for him, Marcus said quietly. I haven't seen him this excited about anything since before the accident. She talks about him constantly, Sarah admitted. Even in her sleep. Tyler this, Tyler that. I think you're stuck with us. Worse things could happen. The renovation crew got to work. Sarah tried to stay out of their way, but they kept pulling her aside to show her plans, ask her opinions, make sure she approved of every change. New windows here, ma'am. These old ones are letting in drafts. We're reinforcing the floor. It's not safe the way it is. What color do you want the kitchen? We've got samples. By noon, the trailer had been transformed. New windows installed, floors reinforced, fresh paint on the walls. A crew was working on the roof while another fixed the plumbing that had been leaking for months. Sarah stood in the middle of it all, overwhelmed. This is too much, she said to Marcus. This is way too much. It's exactly enough. Marcus handed her a cup of coffee. Your daughter gave my son his smile back. You think I'm going to let you live in a falling apart trailer after that. But the money, the time, doesn't matter. Marcus's voice was firm. In my world, we pay our debts, and I owe your daughter a debt I can never fully repay. So I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying. Get used to it. Sarah laughed despite herself. You're very stubborn. It's been noted. From inside the trailer, Emma's voice rang out. Tyler, watch this. I finally got the trick right. A pause. Then Tyler's laughter, bright and genuine. Marcus's eyes went soft. Hear that? Yeah. That's the sound of my boy being happy. That's the sound I thought I'd never hear again. He turned to Sarah. You have no idea what you've given us. No idea at all. Sarah thought about the past 4 years. The grief. The struggle. The endless, exhausting fight to keep her head above water. And now this flood of kindness and help and hope that she never saw coming. "I think I might have some idea," she said quietly. They stood together, two single parents who had found each other through their children's unlikely friendship, watching the chaos of renovations swirl around them. It felt like a beginning. That afternoon, the first of the letters arrived. Not emails or texts or social media messages. Actual letters. Handwritten, stamped, addressed to Emma Brooks, Cedar Falls, Kansas. The mail carrier showed up with a bag full of them. "These are all for your daughter," he said, looking bewildered. "Started coming in this morning. Post office said there's more. A lot more." Emma sat on the newly reinforced porch and opened them one by one. "Dear Emma, I saw your story on the news. I'm 82 years old, and I'd given up on people. You gave me hope again. Thank you. Love, Margaret from Ohio." "Dear Emma, I'm in a wheelchair like your friend Tyler. Kids at my school don't talk to me either. Your story made me feel less alone. Your friend Jason, age 10. Dear Emma, I'm a veteran like your dad. I served 3 tours. When I saw you wearing his dog tags, I cried. You're honoring his memory every day. With respect, Sergeant First Class Thomas Williams, retired." Emma read every letter, every single one. Her voice got quieter and quieter as she went through them. "Mom, yeah, baby, these people, they don't even know me. They know what you did. But I didn't do anything big." Emma's voice was small, confused. "I just shared my sandwich." Sarah sat down beside her daughter. "Can I tell you something your dad once told me?" Emma nodded. "He said that the world doesn't change through big dramatic gestures. It changes through small acts of kindness repeated over and over by ordinary people who just decide to do the right thing." Sarah took Emma's hand. "That's what you did. You did the right thing, and it mattered. But I didn't know it would matter this much. That's exactly what makes it special, baby. You didn't do it for the attention or the reward. You did it because someone was hungry and you had food. You did it because it was right." Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she said, "I want to write them back." "Who?" "All of them. Everyone who sent me a letter. I want to write them back and say thank you." Sarah looked at the bag still full of unopened envelopes. "Baby, there might be hundreds of letters here. Maybe thousands. I don't care. They took the time to write to me. I should take the time to write back." Emma's chin lifted with determination. "That's what Dad would do." Sarah's heart swelled with pride so intense it hurt. "Okay," she said. "Okay, baby. We'll write them all back. Every single one." Tyler appeared in the doorway. "Can I help? I'm not great at writing because my hands shake, but I can lick envelopes." Emma grinned. "Deal." They set up a station on the porch. Emma wrote the letters in her careful 9-year-old handwriting. Tyler licked and sealed the envelopes. Sarah addressed them and added stamps. They worked until sunset, until their hands cramped and their eyes were tired. They didn't even make it through half the pile. "We'll do more tomorrow," Emma said, "and the next day, and the day after that, until everyone gets an answer." Sarah looked at her daughter, this small person with the huge heart, and felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Faith. Faith that the world was good. Faith that kindness mattered. Faith that even in the darkest times, light could find a way through. "I'm proud of you," Sarah said. "So proud. I'm just doing what Dad taught me. I know, and that's exactly why I'm proud." The phone rang. Sarah almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Mrs. Brooks. This is Principal Martinez from Jefferson Elementary. I'm calling about Emma." Sarah tensed. "Is something wrong?" No, nothing wrong. Quite the opposite." The principal's voice was warm. "The school board met tonight. Emergency session. We voted unanimously to name our new character education program after Emma. The Emma Brooks Kindness Initiative. We'll be teaching students about empathy, generosity, and community service." Sarah sat down hard. "You're naming a program after my daughter. She's earned it, Mrs. Brooks. What she did has inspired people across the country. We want our students to learn from her example. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Let us honor her. Let her story teach other children that kindness matters. Yes, Sarah whispered. Yes, of course. She hung up and looked at Emma, who was still writing letters by the fading light. Baby. Yeah, Mom. Your school is naming a program after you. Emma looked up confused. What kind of program? A kindness program, to teach other kids to be like you. Emma's brow furrowed. But I'm not special. I just did what anyone would do. That's the thing, baby. Sarah's voice broke. Not everyone would do what you did. That's what makes it matter. That's what makes you special. Emma considered this for a long moment. Then she shrugged and went back to her letters. I still have a lot of writing to do, she said. Can we talk about it later? Sarah laughed, wiping her eyes. Yeah, baby. We can talk about it later. The sun set over Cedar Falls. Inside the renovated trailer, exhausted from a day that had changed everything, Emma Brooks finally fell asleep with a pen still in her hand. She was dreaming of her father. In the dream, he was wearing his uniform, standing tall and proud. He didn't say anything. He just smiled at her, that smile she remembered, the one that always made her feel safe. Then he pointed at something behind her. She turned to look, and saw hundreds of people, thousands of people, all holding hands, all connected by invisible threads that seemed to pulse with light. When she turned back, her father was gone, but she could still feel him, his presence, his pride. And in that moment, Emma understood. The threads connecting all those people, they had started with her, with one small act, one sandwich shared with a stranger. Kindness really did ride forever. 1 year later, Emma Brooks stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the 2 sets of dog tags around her neck, her father's and Walter's son's. She wore them every single day, just like she'd promised. They clinked together softly when she moved, a constant reminder of the 2 soldiers whose legacies she carried. Emma Tyler's here. She grabbed her backpack and ran downstairs, her footsteps echoing through the house. Not the trailer. The house. A real house with 3 bedrooms and a yard and a kitchen where her mom could cook actual meals. The GoFundMe had topped $2 million before they'd closed it. $2 million from strangers across the world who'd heard about a girl and a sandwich and decided to help. The money had paid for the house, Emma's college fund, and something else, something Emma had insisted on. A foundation. The Emma Brooks Kindness Foundation. It helped struggling military families across the country, paying for groceries and rent and medical bills for people who'd sacrificed everything and gotten so little in return. Emma didn't run the foundation. She was 10 years old. But she was its face, its heart, its reason for existing. And today was the first anniversary of the day everything changed. Tyler was waiting on the porch, sitting in his wheelchair with a grin splitting his face. His physical therapy had been going amazingly well. He could stand now for short periods with support. The doctors said he might walk again someday. Might. But to Tyler, might was the most beautiful word in the English language. Ready? He asked. Ready. Emma climbed onto the back of his wheelchair, standing on the bar like she always did, her hands on his shoulders. Let's go. Tyler's arms were stronger now from a year of therapy and exercise. He wheeled them both down the ramp Marcus had built, moving faster than he ever could have a year ago. Slow down, Sarah called from the doorway, but she was laughing. Can't slow down, Mrs. Brooks, Tyler shouted back. We've got 600 bikers waiting for us. Sarah watched them go, her hand pressed to her heart. 1 year. 1 year since 600 motorcycles had descended on Cedar Falls. 1 year since her life had transformed from survival to thriving. 1 year since she'd learned that kindness could move mountains. She wasn't a janitor anymore. She was the patient family liaison at Memorial Hospital, just like Patricia had promised. She helped families navigate the worst moments of their lives, connecting them with resources, holding their hands through fear and grief and uncertainty. It was the best job she'd ever had. You coming? Marcus stood beside his motorcycle, helmet in hand. They weren't dating. Neither of them was ready for that, maybe never would be. But they were friends. Family, almost. bound together by their children's friendship and a shared understanding of loss. Yeah. Sarah grabbed her jacket. I'm coming. She climbed on behind Marcus, wrapped her arms around his waist, and held on as the engine roared to life. Today was special. Today, 600 bikers were returning to Cedar Falls. Not to honor Emma this time, to ride with her. The main street was already packed when they arrived. Motorcycles lined both sides of the road for as far as the eye could see, chrome glinting in the morning sun. Engines rumbling, leather and patches everywhere. But it wasn't intimidating anymore, not to Cedar Falls. Over the past year, the town had learned what Sarah and Emma had learned on that first impossible day. These men weren't what the world thought they were. They were fathers and brothers and sons, veterans and workers and dreamers. They showed up for their community. They protected the vulnerable. They honored kindness wherever they found it. And today they'd come from across the country to celebrate the one-year anniversary of the ride that had changed everything. Hammer was waiting at the staging area, his gray beard even longer now, his face creased with a smile. There she is. He opened his arms wide. The girl who started it all. Emma ran to him and threw her arms around his waist. Hammer. Easy, easy. He laughed, hugging her back. These old bones can't take the enthusiasm they used to. You're not old. You're distinguished. Distinguished. Hammer looked at Marcus. She's been reading the dictionary again. She reads everything, Marcus said. Kid's got more books than our entire clubhouse library. That's because your library is 3 magazines and a repair manual, Tyler called out, wheeling over to join them. The group dissolved into laughter, this strange, beautiful family that had formed from one moment of kindness. All right. Hammer raised his hands. We've got a schedule to keep. Emma, you ready for your speech? Emma's stomach flipped. I think so. You'll be great, Hammer squeezed her shoulder. Just speak from the heart, that's what you're good at. The crowd gathered around a small stage that had been set up in the hospital parking lot, the same parking lot where 600 bikes had converged 1 year ago. Now it held even more. Local families filled every available space. News cameras from a dozen stations pointed at the stage. Politicians who'd suddenly discovered they cared about veteran families stood in the front row trying to look supportive. But Emma didn't see any of them. She saw the faces of people she'd met over the past year, families who'd received help from her foundation, kids who'd written her letters, veterans who'd found community through the Iron Brotherhood's expanded outreach programs. These were her people, her family, her legacy. Sarah helped her up the steps to the stage. Emma's legs were shaking, but she walked to the microphone anyway. 600 faces looked up at her, thousands more beyond them. She took a breath. 1 year ago, she began, her voice small but clear. I shared my lunch with a boy named Tyler. She looked at Tyler in the crowd. He gave her a thumbs up. I didn't think it was a big deal. He was hungry and I had food. That's just what you do. That's what my dad taught me before he went to heaven. Her hand went to the dog tags around her neck. My dad was a soldier. He told me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. It means seeing someone who needs help and helping them even when it's hard, even when you don't have much to give. She paused, gathering herself. I didn't know that sharing my sandwich would bring 600 bikers to my town. I didn't know it would be on the news or raise millions of dollars or start a foundation. I was just doing what my dad taught me. Her voice grew stronger. But here's what I've learned this year. Kindness isn't just about big gestures. It's not about getting on TV or having people say thank you. It's about the small things. The things nobody sees. Sitting with someone who's lonely. Sharing what you have even when you don't have much. Treating people like they matter because they do. She looked at Hammer standing in the front row, with tears streaming down his weathered face. The Iron Brotherhood taught me something too. They taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who rides through the night to help a stranger. It's about who sees someone struggling and says, I've got you. She turned to look at her mother standing at the side of the stage. My mom is the strongest person I know. She worked so hard to take care of me after my dad died. She never complained. She never gave up. And now she spends every day helping other families who are going through hard times. Because that's what kindness looks like. It looks like showing up every single day for people who need you. Emma faced the crowd again. I'm 10 years old. I can't change the world by myself. But I can do small things with a big heart, and so can you. Everyone here can. Everyone watching at home can. You don't need money or power or a motorcycle to make a difference. You just need to see someone who needs something and choose to help. She raised her chin. My dad used to say that kindness is like throwing a rock in a pond. The ripples spread further than you can see. 1 year ago, I threw a rock, and the ripples brought all of you here today. Her voice rang out strong and clear. So I'm asking you to throw your own rocks. Do something kind today, tomorrow, every day. See the people around you who are struggling and reach out, because you never know how far your ripples might spread. She stepped back from the microphone. For one heartbeat silence. Then the roar. 600 voices raised in a deafening cheer. Engines revving. Horns honking. A wall of sound that seemed to shake the earth. Emma stood on that stage with tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the love pouring toward her from every direction. Her mother reached her first, pulling her into a fierce embrace. Your father is so proud of you, Sarah whispered. So proud. I know, Mom. Emma hugged her back. I can feel him. The ceremony continued with speeches from the mayor, the hospital board representatives from veterans organizations. But Emma barely heard any of it. She was too busy hugging the endless stream of people who came to the stage to thank her. Families who'd received help from her foundation. You paid for my daughter's surgery. We couldn't have afforded it without you. Veterans who'd found connection through brotherhood outreach. Your story reminded me why I served. Thank you for giving me purpose again. Kids who'd been inspired by her example. I started a kindness club at my school. We have 50 members now. Each story was another rock thrown in the pond, another ripple spreading outward. Emma hugged them all. At noon, Hammer called for everyone's attention. All right, brothers and sisters, time for the main event. He gestured toward the line of motorcycles. We're doing a memorial ride in honor of all the soldiers we've lost. And this year, for the first time, we've got a very special guest leading us out. He turned and held out his hand to Emma. Emma Brooks, will you do us the honor? Emma's eyes went wide. Me? But I don't have a motorcycle. You don't need one. Marcus rolled forward on his bike, Tyler secured in the sidecar as always, but this time there was a small seat attached to the back. You're riding with us. Emma looked at her mother. Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. Go on, baby. Lead them out. Emma climbed onto the seat behind Marcus, her small hands gripping his jacket. Tyler reached back and squeezed her knee. Ready, partner. Ready. Marcus revved his engine. Behind him, 600 more engines answered. The sound was thunder. It was power. It was 600 people united by a single act of kindness. Marcus pulled out of the parking lot, leading the way. Behind him, an endless river of chrome and leather and roaring machines. They rode through Cedar Falls, past the hospital where everything began, past Emma's new house, past the school where the kindness program bore her name. People lined the streets, waving and cheering. Kids held signs. Veterans saluted. Emma waved back at all of them, this small girl on the back of a motorcycle leading an army. They rode for 2 hours. Through Cedar Falls and beyond, through small towns and open highways, a moving tribute to soldiers who'd given everything and families who'd sacrificed so much. When they finally returned to the hospital parking lot, Emma's voice was hoarse from laughing and her cheeks hurt from smiling. But she'd never felt more alive. The afternoon dissolved into a massive celebration. Food trucks lined the streets. Music played from speakers someone had set up. Children ran between the parked motorcycles while their parents talked and laughed and shared stories. Emma and Tyler sat together on the porch of a nearby house, watching the chaos with matching grins. "Can you believe this started because of a sandwich?" Tyler asked. "I know, it's crazy." "Not crazy." Tyler turned to look at her. "Miraculous." Emma considered the word. "Yeah, I guess that's better." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Tyler spoke again, his voice different, nervous. "Emma." "Yeah." "My dad's been talking to your mom a lot lately." Emma nodded. She'd noticed. "Do you think... would it be weird if..." Tyler stumbled over his words. "If they got together someday." Emma thought about it, really thought about it. Her dad had been gone for 5 years. Her mom had been alone, struggling, barely surviving. And now there was Marcus, this strong, kind, protective man who looked at Sarah like she hung the moon. "I don't think my dad would mind," Emma said finally. "He'd want Mom to be happy, and Marcus makes her happy." Tyler's face lit up. "So you'd be okay with it?" "Tyler, if your dad married my mom, we'd be brother and sister." Is that bad?" Emma grinned. "That's awesome. I always wanted a brother." Tyler laughed, the sound bright and free. "Me too. A sister. I always wanted a sister." They high-fived, a complicated move for Tyler that required careful coordination, but he managed it. Neither of them noticed Marcus and Sarah standing nearby, listening to every word. Sarah's face was red. "I can't believe kids are perceptive." Marcus was grinning. "So, now that we have their permission..." "Marcus, we're not." "I know, not yet, but maybe someday." His voice was gentle. "When we're both ready, if we're ever both ready." Sarah looked at him. This man who'd brought an army to her daughter's defense, who'd exposed a criminal to protect her job, who'd helped rebuild her home and her life and her faith in humanity. "Maybe someday," she agreed softly. It wasn't a promise. It was a possibility. And sometimes that was enough. As the sun began to set, Hammer found Emma sitting alone on the stage legs, dangling over the edge, watching the crowd. "Mind if I join you?" "Course not." He lowered himself down with a grunt, his old bones protesting. They sat in companionable silence for a moment. "You know," Hammer said, "I've been writing for 52 years. I've seen a lot, done a lot, some things I'm proud of, some things I'm not." Emma listened, sensing this was important. "But in all those years, I've never seen anything like what happened here. 600 men riding through the night for a little girl they'd never met. Millions of dollars raised, lives changed." He shook his head slowly. "All because you shared a sandwich." "It wasn't just the sandwich," Emma said. "It was everything that happened after. All the people who helped." "That's true. But those people wouldn't have helped if you hadn't started it. You threw the first rock, Emma. Everything else was just ripples." He reached into his vest and pulled out a piece of paper. "I want to show you something. I got this letter last week." He handed it to Emma. She read it slowly, her lips moving with the words. "Dear Hammer, my name is Daniel. I'm 14 years old. Last year I was planning to kill myself. I felt like nobody cared about me, like I was invisible, like the world would be better without me. Then I saw the story about Emma Brooks on TV. I saw 600 bikers show up for a girl who just shared her lunch with a kid in a wheelchair. And I thought, if kindness like that still exists, maybe the world isn't as bad as I thought. Maybe I should stick around to see what happens. So I did. I'm still here. I'm getting help. Things are getting better. I just wanted you to know that Emma saved my life. She probably doesn't know it, but she did. Thank you for honoring her. Thank you for reminding me that good people exist." Emma's hands were shaking by the time she finished. "Hammer." "That's one of hundreds," Hammer said quietly. "Hundreds of letters from people who saw your story and decided to keep going, to try harder, to believe in something." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "I didn't know." "That's the thing about kindness, sweetheart. You never know how far it reaches. You never know whose life you're changing. You just do the right thing and trust that it matters." He put his arm around her shoulders. "You saved lives, Emma. Not with weapons or medicine or grand gestures, with a sandwich, with kindness, with just being who you are. Emma leaned into him, this old warrior who'd become like a grandfather to her. "I'm scared sometimes," she admitted, "that I won't live up to it, that everyone expects me to be this amazing person and I'm just me." "Just you is enough." Hammer's voice was firm. "You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to save the world. You just have to keep being kind. Keep throwing rocks in the pond. Keep being Emma." "Is that really enough?" "It's everything." They sat together as the sun sank lower, two unlikely friends united by an act of kindness that had changed the world. The evening ended with a candlelight vigil. 600 candles held by 600 bikers forming a circle in the hospital parking lot. In the center stood Emma, Tyler, Sarah, and Marcus. Hammer's voice rose above the silence. "1 year ago, we came here to honor a little girl who reminded us what we're supposed to be, who we're supposed to be. Today, we come back to celebrate what that reminder created. A foundation that's helped over 1,000 families, a community that learned to look after its own, and most importantly, a living example that kindness matters." He raised his candle higher. "Emma Brooks taught us that you don't need to be rich or powerful or famous to change the world. You just need to see someone who's hurting and choose to help. You just need to throw your rock in the pond." 600 voices spoke in unison. Kindness rides forever. The words echoed through the night, a promise and a prayer and a declaration all at once. Emma stood in the center of that circle, candle in hand, dog tags around her neck, surrounded by the people who had become her family. She thought about her father watching from heaven. She thought about Walter's son, whose memory she carried. She thought about all the people she'd never meet, whose lives had been touched by ripples she'd started. And she understood, finally, truly understood what her father had been trying to teach her all along. Kindness wasn't about the big gestures. It wasn't about the recognition or the reward. It was about seeing someone who needed something and choosing to help. It was about throwing rocks in ponds and trusting that the ripples would find their way to shore. She looked at Tyler beside her, this boy who'd become her best friend. She looked at her mother, this woman who'd fought so hard for so long. She looked at Marcus, this stranger who'd become family. She looked at Hammer and Crow and Ghost and all the others, these warriors who'd ridden through the night because they believed in something. And she made a promise, not out loud, just in her heart. A promise to her father, to Walter's son, to everyone who'd ever been told they didn't matter. She would keep throwing rocks, every day, for the rest of her life. Because kindness mattered, small gestures mattered. Seeing people who were invisible and choosing to notice them that mattered more than anything. Her father had taught her that. 600 bikers had proven it, and now Emma would spend her life making sure the world never forgot. The candles burned low. The crowd began to disperse. But Emma stood there a moment longer, face turned up toward the stars. "I hope I made you proud, Daddy," she whispered. The wind stirred, gentle and warm, ruffling her hair like a father's hand. She smiled. Then she turned and walked toward her family, all of them, every single one, ready to face whatever came next. Because kindness had carried her this far, and kindness would carry her the rest of the way. The last candle flickered out, but the light it had sparked would burn forever. In Cedar Falls, Kansas, in towns across America, in hearts around the world, people remembered what a 9-year-old girl had taught them. That courage doesn't require strength. That generosity doesn't require wealth. That changing the world doesn't require power. It just requires kindness. One sandwich at a time. One stranger at a time. One small act repeated over and over until the ripples reach shores you'll never see. Emma Brooks had started something that would never end. And in a world that often felt dark and hopeless and cruel, that was the greatest miracle of all. Kindness rides forever. This is not just a story. This is proof that ordinary people armed with nothing but compassion can shake the earth. If you believe in that power, subscribe to this channel for more stories that prove humanity is worth believing in. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. Comment below and tell me about a time when kindness changed your life or when you were kind to someone who needed it. Because every comment, every share, every moment you spend spreading goodness adds another ripple to the pond. and you never know whose life those ripples might save. Emma Brooks shared a sandwich with a stranger. 600 men rode through the night to honor her. Millions of people watched and remembered what matters. Now it's your turn. Throw your rock, start your ripples, and trust that somewhere, somehow, they'll reach the shore. The world needs more kindness. Be the one who gives it.